In this screencast, I'd like to show you how to get, configure, and install an ejabberd XMPP server. In order to do this, you'll also need to install Erlang, which is the language and runtime that ejabberd is written in. We'll start by going to erlang.org, clicking on the download link, and clicking download on the latest version of Erlang under the source column. Next, we'll go to www.ejabberd.im, which is the ejabberd homepage. We'll click the downloads link, which will take us to the Process 1 downloads page. We'll scroll down the page until we see the current version of ejabberd, which is 2.1.2, and we'll download the source code and click download. Once these are downloaded, we can go to the downloads folder and unpack Erlang. This might take a little while. Now that Erlang is unpacked, we can change to that directory and run configure. This will also take a little while. Now that Erlang is configured, we can build it by typing make. Now that Erlang is built, we can install it by typing sudo make install. This will install it in the default directory. Erlang is now installed, so we can go back to the downloads directory and do the same thing for ejabberd. First we'll unpack it. Now that it's unpacked, go into the ejabberd-2.1.2/source directory. We'll type configure, and this time we're going to give it a prefix to install it under our home directory, into the directory users jack ejabberd. By default it will install it somewhere under user local, but doing it this way keeps it nice and tidy. Once it's configured, we can type make, and it'll build ejabberd. Now ejabberd is configured and built, so we can install it. Notice that we don't have to use sudo because we're installing it under our home directory. Now that it's installed, we can configure the server. So I'm going to open up Emacs. I'm going to tell it to go to the ejabberd directory, and it stores its configuration in etc ejabberd and ejabberd.cfg. And this is the ejabberd configuration file. The ejabberd configuration file is actually a file full of Erlang records, and so you have to be kind of careful when you're editing it to keep the format intact. We're going to scroll down until we get to the host section right here, and the host name is defined as currently localhost. Now this is fine if you're doing local testing, but if you want to actually use a server domain, you can put something here like metajack.im, or you can put multiple things here if it's going to have respond to multiple names. I'm just going to leave it at localhost for now, since we're only going to be using it to test locally. And if you keep going down the file, you'll see the listen section, which defines the ports that ejabberd listens on, the client-to-server port, the server-to-server port, and the most interesting one for us is the web port, 5280, which is currently serving up the CAPTCHA plugin, HTTP bind, HTTP polling, and the web admin. We're going to get rid of CAPTCHA and HTTP poll because we don't need them. And then we're going to keep going down the file until we get to the modules section. Now the modules section defines all of the different extensions that ejabberd is configured to use. For instance, capabilities, service discovery, IRC, which we'll actually comment out because we don't need. Here's the HTTP bind module, multi-user chat, the privacy module, pub/sub, registration. We're not going to support server registration, so I'm just going to comment this out. The roster, shared roster, which we also don't need. Mod stats, mod time, mod vcard. You can enable or disable these as you wish, and some of them support more configuration options which you can find in the documentation. With that done, we're going to save the file and exit. Now we'll go back to the terminal and we'll try to start ejabberd. We can do this by running ejabberd sbin ejabberd control, which is the main ejabberd control program, and start. This will try to launch ejabberd in the background, so it doesn't look like it does much, but we can run the status command to find out what the current status is. If we run that, here at the top we can see the status is node down, which means it didn't start. That's okay, we can go and see what happened. So ejabberd keeps its log files under the directory where you installed it in var log ejabberd. And as you can see here, there's an ejabberd log and a crash log. We can take a look at the end of the ejabberd log and see what happened. So here we can see it's had a problem loading the ejabberd config file on line 521. So let's bring back up Emacs. We'll load the ejabberd configuration file back in. We'll go to line 521, and we can see here that there's a line that we forgot to comment out. So we'll comment that out, resave the file, exit, go back to the terminal, and we can try to start ejabberd again. Now we can check the status. And we can see that it started, but it's not quite running yet. So we'll check the status again, and now we can see that it started. To test out my new XMPP account, I'm going to go to Adium. I'm going to add a new account, a Jabber account, give it Jack at localhost, password testing, and because this is running on localhost, we need to give it a little extra information, tell it to connect to the localhost, otherwise it'll try to do DNS lookups to figure out which XMPP server to connect to. So once we do this, we can hit OK, and we can see that it's connected. And that's all there is to it.